Thank you very much. It's nice to know that someone's born in 1985. I don't think that makes me feel young. But anyways, but makes me feel good nonetheless. I'm going to talk about making data actionable with FME. And before I talk about what actionable means, I'm actually going to tell you a little bit about, what background I'm coming from. So I'm with a startup. The company's called Fusium Innovations, and basically we're almost a year old. And when our company started talking to FME, that was only made up of 2 people. Then Chris, actually who's sitting in the audience, he joined us as the company became a company last July, and we do data and analytics, and what we want to deliver to people as a service is insightful dashboards. So the important point about this is we're not delivering data. We're not getting paid for data processes. We're actually delivering a product that looks like business intelligence and dashboards. So anything we do from a data perspective has to be pretty efficient and pretty effective, and we're not getting paid by being slow, that's for sure. We really want to spend our time making these dashboards. So I'm sure everybody in this audience knows about big data, the 4 V's that are associated with that, and also the trends with technology and with more people getting involved in interpreting data, the citizen data scientists and self-serve analytics. And really, things have changed a lot because the tools for business intelligence have progressed so much, which it just gives us way more capacity or a little bit of choices and flexibility. So what is actionable data? Well, to me, it's you're going to enable people to actually do something with the data right away. So it has to be relevant, it has to be easily consumed and easily understood, and that person's not going to waste time trying to put everything together before they actually delve and try to get insights into the data. So that's what I mean by actionable. Our company has a philosophy. Again, since we're going after the insight and learning from specific data, we want to start with a question. So with that question, we're going to gather the right data together, and then we're going to do some analysis. You as a customer would do analysis and gain insight. So the work that FME and the data stuff, it all happens at the data level. So you already know what you're going to try to work towards. You already, part of getting all the data together and making it actually in a consumable form happens at that second step. Just a reminder that the topic area that we are starting with is oil and gas, because that's all of our backgrounds. Doesn't mean we're designing a system only for oil and gas, it just means that's what we're starting. And it so happens that wells are actually tied to a surface location. So mapping is very, very important to us. I like this slide because on the left it says that there's our 588 well bores, and really that means there's that many trajectories subsurface, but on the surface there's 420. And this is a good example of the higher level manipulation I'm using FME for, actually, with the neighborhood finder. So it's, we need this thing. Now, we're not doing everything spatially. Like, we have actually a lot of work to do with non-spatial data as well. And so we're using FME for that as well. So with the mention about modern BI tools, business intelligence tools, they're getting so good that you could actually do so much in Tableau, Spotfire, and Power BI all on your own, right? I mean, they're getting so good at bringing all the sources together from all over the place, data modeling, etc. We tend to use Power BI. So you can do the reading, the transforming, all your processing on your data in the BI tool, or, you have the other case. I would say there's a tipping point when you seem to do the same thing over and over and over again. And if you're creating multiple business BI similar dashboards, well then you pretty much, you should be thinking about putting that in the back and do the data work first. So this, oh yeah, and you have to put up my doodles. It was just a thing. So, you can ask me more about that. So there's gonna be more of them. Rather than put a whole bunch of FME shots, I thought, okay, I'll just sketch things out. So again, thinking about on the left-hand side would be all those disparate data sources. In the next one to it is data model and relating, connecting, and then, you know, as you get more contextual, or you really have identified what you need, you could be delivering out just a flattened table to make things simple in your Power BI, in your business intelligence world, or you could deliver exactly what you need. So I just have this here earlier on because to the left, it's really ultimately flexible. I mean, you can do whatever you want in those tools, but you know, once you've decided what you need, do you really need that flexibility, or are you just going to move towards efficiency? So just keep that in mind. Why did we, so we're preferring to back end with FME, because again, the business isn't actually processing data, the business is actually delivering a product in the form of dashboard. So why FME? Well, I personally consider it a rapid development tool. And in brackets, that's also good in production. so I can still test my algorithms or concepts, and it's flexible enough that you could change something quickly, and that's really important. And then once you got that going, you can press the button and it'll just crank the same thing. It's repeatable. And it is spatial, so we do have that spatial component, and that's important. Longer term, well, of course, it's spatial, so we might keep it always for that. But you know, there might be some point where you might, if things are so repeatable and so successful in the FME world, then maybe you think about creating your own application for that. The problem with that is, and I think I've heard this several times, is that it comes with a maintenance component, right? So, oh yeah, did I mention, there's 4 of us in this company. So right now, we are not at that level, and maybe that's a growth thing. Or perhaps you rather than you do a mixture, right? You could keep doing the same processes or being like the person in the talk this morning. Really, maybe it's more flexible just to adapt and improve FME and use it as the workhorse. To be determined. So I'm just steps to actionable that I see are, of course, the base things, which is the source. You source what you need, you read it in. Data quality is probably the next step where you verify and you have a chance to improve or mark. Marking data to me is also an improvement. Blend and track. So blending is where you start using your data model to your advantage and integrate information, and organizing from a business intelligence. I say Power BI a lot just because that's what we use, but from a business intelligence point of view, if you kind of know where your endpoint is, man, it's really beneficial to start organizing your data and grouping it beforehand. And then, of course, you've got the more complicated stuff like doing statistics and pivoting. I'm a big fan of pivoting and calculating stuff. And to the very right is kind of the things that you're going to deliver. And, you know, up till a month ago, I just had the flattening there. And then I added the customized flattened version. And that's because we recently put out a product, a subscription service, and that's really what we ended up doing. So the flattening was great for the business intelligence. It is an ultimate flexibility, but way more flexible than the targeted customized one. And in the end, you know, we kind of knew what we wanted to deliver, so we're definitely on the customized level. So that's for this latest release on our subscription. The FME side kind of looks like this data process flow. Some of it can be in parallel, but, you know, basically just follow the snake around because some of it has to be in series. I have it in different colors because to me they're kind of different parts of that data processing levels, similarities. And I'll quickly kind of walk through that. And here comes more sketches. So the first thing is the start. And we load the shapefile, and we are using not only Power BI, but we're all Microsoft. So Microsoft Azure. And at this point in time, we're going to load everything into the Azure database, which is interesting from a data management modeling hat. We're kind of not doing that. We're kind of gearing our database just for this final delivery to people. So, I do like to keep the raw data as is, and it's great that FME can talk to Microsoft Azure Spatial. That's wonderful, and we can read from that too. It's great. So we do rely on open data right now, and often open data from the government comes in a shapefile, or that's the best one to grab anyways. And we do some basic data quality to it. Because if you have patterns of having certain fields of data where it's beneficial to you at the end of the process to have it split up and combined in other ways, we'll do it here. So that's what that little script is saying, okay? You retain some stuff, you split some stuff up, you remash it together. That's going to benefit you at the end of the process, and by the way, keep some dates. Do whatever you need to do with that. The next step, and this is kind of trying to explain the well surface to trajectory one-to-many. So we're actually blending things together, and we're aggregating, and we're arranging, and we're combining. So we're doing all that extra work with FME. So finding where things are co-located, and not only do we figure out that those four are co-located, but setting some sort of order or meaning to the data. And then at the end doing some math on it. So we are actually creating value with some data manipulation at this stage. Then, of course, make consumable. Codes are great. They're great, but OHA4, if they have the most wells in Alberta, does that matter to you? CNRL, by the way. So, to make things usable at the client's end, you've got to actually be speaking English. So, codes are for computers. That's what I said aside. And at this point, again, I also do the organizing and tracking. So we kind of know where we're wanting to get to. If there's some sort of sort order, like on, oh gosh, I know the word, but it's going to go away from me. Data that isn't numeric. So you know that the well license life cycle has 5 stages, and the 5 stages are words. Well, at this point in time, you can actually put in your sort order, and it just saves you a lot of time in the end. So delivering actionable data. So this is the bigger flattened base. So rather than deliver a relational model or many sources where people have to do their own connections, you would just give them all the extra stuff that you made, including the split out stuff and things they can search on, the sort order and all that stuff. And maybe you do, in the sketch, it's kind of like, well, you have some people are going to just need that, and then other people would like other things. Just you're starting to play with that idea of customization. You have to answer that question that person wants answered. And you'll give them a flattened file, so not ultimately flexible, like all the data in data model, but more efficient and a little bit flexible. And again, we did go a step later recently, going, okay, we made all these dashboards, and they're great. And in the unit, we actually had subdivided them according to subject. But then what were we really using in those dashboards? And that what this step came in handy for. It's like, okay, if you're delivered 10 variables, but you're really only going to use 5 of the 10, just let's cut it right down. Now, you kind of lost your flexibility there. But on the other hand, as from a service point of view, you've gained a lot. And FME, of course, is behind this, so you can, add what you want and by changing the workbench, which seemed to work quite well. I'm glad I don't have to open up tons of code that I write because I have a hard time finding it. What I would like to do or add on to that back end would be a little bit more statistics. So in the oil and gas industry, we end up with a lot of exponential decay. As it turns out, there's always a few main contributors and a lot of not very good contributors. The tail's also important. And I also like kind of knowing where those cutoffs are. And from a business intelligence point of view, I like grouping them according to those cutoffs. Rather than binning every 10th item, you would actually bin according to more of a Pareto, like here's the 80-20 solution, or here's the main contributors, here's the guys that are in the transitioning middle, and then here's the tail. So I would actually like to, I do some of this already with the statistics calculator, and actually do the cumulative sum already with FME, which is a lot easier than than actually doing it in Power BI. Sorry. And I would like to actually do some more. The mean and the mode, etc. Get all that out beforehand and make that easier so that you don't have to do a stop in Power BI just to do that before you do another preparation step with your data. What I also like to get better at, and we do a bit of this already, is detect and classify transactions. So what is new, what is old, and over time. So the new transformer in 2017 is great. That is wonderful, and it'll help because the FME thing I had beforehand had lots of outputs. However, it's still change detection between the last and the next is great. But I really do want that whole, perpetuate over time, right? So I'll be looking into that more, or maybe perhaps you guys have ideas as well. This is kind of a visualization of what we use. In this, there's a trend here. I don't think it's fully accurate because I changed a few things in the end. But that attribute creator, it stands way out there. And I'd like to think that that's because we add value to our data by going through these processes. That could be super grouping, just making it easier to get people to where they want to be with the data. The reader is also probably a good sign because we're starting to bring a whole bunch of data together, right, and make it easier for people. Statistics calculator, I'm really quite happy that that's there because that's where I'm starting to offload stuff and bringing it to the back end so I know more about my data so I can actually get further ahead with it sooner. Attribute renamer, oh well, whatever, I don't know. And feature merger, I thought for sure, used to be my number one. So it's kind of good that I'm starting to use these other ones. And it's not limited to, of course, these are the top 5. I'm using a lot. So I thought in the world tour it was kind of interesting because there was a here is our most popular transformer. So I thought, oh, okay, I'll do the same. Yeah, I'll do a visualization. So the conclusions are for our business, it's best to automate and condition the data before that getting to the dashboard delivery. We communicate with maps, so FME's incredibly important. I think every dashboard we make has a map, as it turns out. I don't think we started off that way, but it does. They do. And it helps rapidly design a repeatable data process. So we're still building, we're still thinking. FME is really flexible that way. And it allows us to deliver that actionable data. So this is kind of, we had different processes just for the first column and the other columns. So we are Microsoft based. We will be using those tools as well. Maybe FME isn't going to fit everywhere, but for the short amount of time that we decided to do this subscription, I don't know, I'm going to say 3 months. Yes, that's a nod. I'm right. So we decided we were going to build these dashboards with all this data, and it only took us 3 months. So, I figure this thing is really helping us quite a bit. So I think that's the end. Come, visit our website, or if you have any questions, that'd be great as well. Try to answer them.
Questions back here. Just a quick one.
No, there's actually a change detection. Yeah, thing.
Oh, yeah.
Transformer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's in the FME hub, is that right?
So, what somebody yesterday said you can use feature merger too. So I had this thing using feature merger, but I think the change detection one will actually help me. It still is just detecting change between the same source type, schema, two of them. So my challenge is, well, how do I track change over a long time? And we have an idea, but it'll help for sure. I'm sure all the new date stuff's going to help too.
A question in the middle here.
Hey, you had mentioned that you also had non-spatial in addition to spatial, and I was just wondering what sort of projects or offerings you've already done that was more on the non-spatial side.
That would be non-spatial? Sorry? That was the end of it? I didn't hear the end of the question.
Just what was more on the non-spatial side?
Well, I'd say most of the data is non-spatial. The spatial data, which is just wells, has tons of metadata that's not. So really, the spatial solution for the wells is a small part. You're really manipulating all the other stuff, which is the metadata, I'd say. So I'd almost say it was 80-20. 80 metadata manipulation, and the 20 is just joining to a spatial component at the moment. I mean, where we do want to get to, since we're a startup, we're sort of limited to what we're starting with. But FME is going to hopefully play a big role in telling us how far a well is from a transmission line, or how far we are from a city. And we are starting to do that. So then that, instead of a 20-80 split, you'll probably see maybe 50-50 and growing, hopefully.
Yeah.
When writing this up for a dashboard, did you save it about geodatabase, web services?
We're sort of creating that SQL database without a typical N3 normalization database. It's not that. Everything's in SQL Server. Yeah, in Azure.
Any other questions? One here.
Does your data include core logs, transfer trees, seismics, synthetic logs, any of that stuff?
Well, not yet, and that's because we're a startup, and we didn't want. You have to pay money for that stuff. So, we definitely you'd want to get there, because part of business analytics and business intelligence is to consider what's happening below the ground. And then I almost see FME having a bigger role, because everything you have to do is kind of compress before you get to the BI tools. I mean, I think even we used to use Spotfire a lot, not this company, but even it would have limits. So I think there's great benefits in doing all this work to your data, especially when you know kind of what you're going to do with it beforehand. And when you get into time series or depth series, you're definitely going to have to do something like that, I think.
You mentioned the maps. Is that in Power BI that you're creating the maps?
We are, yes. And
How's the mapping capability?
well, it's not great. It's Bing. They are improving it. They have a partnership with Esri, but we don't know what it looks like to our end yet. We can test it, and there's more functionality there. But everything we're using right now it's Bing. So basically, in the FME streams, we're working the data, and then we're using a bit of Power BI functionality to aggregate it on the map level.
Any other questions?